confidential material.
Yes.
It just looks like a money laundering operation.
Oh, that's really true. Well, the other thing about her, they want a woman in there, and they don't have a really good field of women in the Democratic Party. So, they're trying to see what can we work with, who's been loyal. And, with all the they've been trying to do a lot of things to pump up her profile. I've noticed that. I've noticed the Gavin Newsom thing. He's, of course, the guy who said he was going to call martial law against his own citizens. Masonic duties into the Theosophical Society, and brought forward so much influence on FDR that we're going to see a whole occult puzzle piece fall into place with FDR. But by the time we get to 1945, he has been booted out of the vice presidency. He was going to be there, and he was going to be President-X. But instead, we got Truman, who would drop the bomb. And this is something that it's pretty clear Wallace was not going to do. So these groups behind the scenes had to move this in just right. And there's going to be a lot that plays out in the first 6 months of this year that'll give us some of those answers. Let's take it back in time. Today's January 20th, 2023. What was going on January 20th of 1941? Some 82 years ago. It was the official inauguration of FDR and Henry Wallace. And both of these men were very, very deep. Roosevelt, including not only the Masons and the Oddfellows, which is a very interesting kind of spin-off of the Masons, and unusual for a lot of reasons. Very heavy emphasis on youth. But also, when we look at Henry Wallace, we are looking at the X piece coming in, a direct major theosophist, but somebody who was such a core member that they were part of the Halcyon Temple, which is the theosophical group that broke away from the Besant Theosophical Society and really started their own thing in California. This is an important group. I highlighted them in an episode. This has been a couple of years now. But the whole story of the Halcyon Temple is in a wonderful book called Radiance from Halcyon, and that's Halcyon by Paul Eli Ivy. A utopian experiment of religion and science. I'm going to read a few quotes from this book tonight, but one of the things that we can say about Halcyon is it had some major theosophical figures and members, and it was heavy on the artistic side, and it had the master Hilarion as its kind of main deity overseeing proceedings, which gave it a heavy emphasis around arts and sciences. But the scientific ray that Hilarion had with him in theosophical terms gives us the very, very deep scientific edge. And what happens is when we come out of that group, we see the Varian brothers, who will be the literal foundation of Silicon Valley. And these guys are going to move deeply into the whole picture of developing, the very early CERN experiments. So the Varian brothers, I've highlighted them in relation to the fact that they grew up in this Halcyon community. And Halcyon has one very interesting member there in Vice President Henry Wallace, who was going to become the 33rd president after being the 33rd vice president. And that is someone who was a Mason, but stepped from Masonic duties into the Theosophical Society and brought forward so much influence.
And that's the guys I used to hang out with in the United Nations in New York. Guys like Billy Clover, George Christie, part of that. And they had their own orders of the ISIS Foundation. And that's what I created the Hedgerow Longhouse Institute for Aesthetically Adept and appropriate technologies straight from the house of the guys. Very artistic entity that was precipitating the aesthetic. It's a thing called collaborative artist projects. Right? And we had a TV show called Potato Wolf. And all these things you can look at. And all these things, you will find me. But I was always in the background. I'm always a guy who has the vision of what needs to be done, then works out the strategy to do it. And that's my job. I'm the strategist, right? I can find the person to put in front of the spotlight because they look good, but But see, the problem is the present motif of that has been so corrupted by sin. Sin. What is sin? Sin is when you disconnect from God's unconditional love and you think your ego is it, right?
Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Only when it was on TV, radio, 24/7, Right. Before the war is a justification for making the war. Right. So this is. Nobody hears about it. It cannot be a justification to make war. Except before it was on TV 24/7. It was being bandied about, and no one heard it until. Dick Cheney got on the phone and talked to somebody at New York Times. New York Times said something, and then Cheney quoted them, and then, they were off to the races. So all I'm saying, this is, if you hear this being used, you will say, oh yeah, Al saw that first. That's all I'm saying. And it may not even come to that. But I actually think, Bibi really painted himself into a corner. And no, it's the same thing. Because there's going to be a war. Basically, Israel is going to be obliterated. Because the guys up there in Lebanon, they have missiles that can take Israel out. Very sophisticated, very accurate. They are what are known as the missiles that the Katyusha rockets are like fireworks. These suckers are what are known as ballistic missiles, meaning they shoot way up in the air and they come down really fast. Anything coming from 300 miles up in space, shooting down at a specific thing, that's hypersonic. You're talking about hypersonic missiles. And it's hard to, almost impossible to knock that shit down, right? And the Iron Dome isn't set to do that. So those guys in Lebanon, they have, maybe 10,000 of the Katyusha rockets, which Iron Dome can kind of knock down. And they have been shooting things at Israel, for the last month or so. And the Iron Dome has been taking them down. But Israel is running out of Iron Dome missiles. So they're just kind of wearing it down. And then if they want to attack Israel and really blow it up, all they have to do is first shoot off those first 10,000 Katyusha rockets, and Iron Dome will use up the last bit of whatever they had, and then they will shoot their 10,000 super accurate ballistic missiles that can't be stopped, and will take out Haifa and all of the major cities and kill. This is because what's going to happen is Bibi will have to keep fighting, right? Will have to keep killing. And even though Biden go, we shouldn't do this, it's still going to happen. And they will get to a point where they kill, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And that's when the Arab world will go after Israel. And Israel doesn't have a big army. Israel doesn't really have a lot of stuff. And their little not being able to. So have you been watching Scott and the Colonel talk about Israel? Because Scott has been quite erudite on how Israel screwed up. Meaning they knew that Hamas was going to do this, but they didn't know exactly when they were going to do it. And they said, they weren't going to do it on the holidays. And if we get everyone all upset and it upsets their holidays, Bibi will be in trouble if nothing happens. So we'll just, and they let it happen, right? And then it got carried away. And so I think this is the end of Israel, basically. So did you see any of Scott? I mean, I'm just basically pandering what Scott and the Colonel have said, and they did it way.
Actually, I don't listen to either one of them very much anymore.
Why?
Because I think they're both. They're not experts on it. They are commentators that are commenting on it.
But they weren't when they were talking about Ukraine. Then they were straight up.
They were experts there, more expert there.
They were more expert there, and they weren't commenting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying I know where they're coming from. I know what their position is, which makes me less interested in hearing them now. I have paid a little attention to both of them, but not much.
But you were right on them for the Ukraine, right? You were 100%. They were the top dog.
Well, no, I'll say that differently. They were saying things that I could see that I could back up in my way of looking at things.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the political dynamic, is that people just want to see what they want. How I believe, because he was like, oh, wow, these guys are great. When they were talking about Ukraine and Russia. And, I said, when it first happened, he said, oh, Russia's just going to come in and take over and everything will be fine. And then they'll not have to worry about NATO and right? No, not really. I said, no, this war is going to go on for a long time. He said, no, Russia's so much bigger. I said, no, you're not getting the point. The point is that this war in Ukraine is scripted. What do you mean scripted? And I said, well, just have to look at the last 20 years. Let's go back to 1999, when Putin basically was taking over the Kremlin. He was an apparatchik of the KGB, Internal Security, and basically Michael Gorbachev was also from that school, but he understood that the Soviet Union was toast, and he didn't want the world to go up in a big nuclear war. So he did his best to navigate everything. Then Boris Yeltsin hated Gorbachev because Boris was a street fighting man. And so he just basically destroyed the Soviet. I mean, the Soviet Union could have kept going. Michael Gorbachev was keeping it kind of putting along, but he was going to step back as a military threat, right? And focus more on the economics. Gorbachev didn't either. He destroyed the Soviet Union. He destroyed the economic base and the military base, right, of what was and became Greater Russia, which, not so much. The 90s was a mess. Everyone was like eating their dog. So Putin was brought in because he had been a bag man or a politician in that city that's over near the Baltic, over near Finland. And so he came in when he was trying to clean house. And that's when George A. said, oh, not one inch, right? Well, Jimmy Baker had a little talk with Putin. Said, listen, Putin, you're our kind of guy. You clean house. You put Russia into a, Gorbachev and Yeltsin, turning Russia into democracy. You can steer it back towards your apparatchik, and you can make a lot of money, right? And you have all these assets, state assets, sell them at a fire store to the people economically we like in Russia, and that became the rich guys, right? Guys with the big yachts, houses all over the world, right? Well, good for business, right?
That's her favorite word.
Russia went from 40% of their GDP was manufacturing, 40% of their GDP was farm, right? And 20% was the military industrial complex, whereas the United States, 60% of our GDP is not from, we spend 60% of our GDP on the military industrial complex. The largest part of our GDP is art. Did you know that? The United States, the largest part of the GDP, the United States is art. When I say art, I mean TV, movies, magazines, theater, the music business, concerts. That's art. Everything. Not just kids with credits. So we've got like many layers here. Many. Let's get this toasty. I woke up this morning, it was 17 degrees outside and 31 inside the man cave. So I fired up the griddle. I'm this gigantic foot-size cast iron frying pan. And I turned on the burner, the ring, and it heats that up, and then that heats the place up. So I got it up to 45 pretty quick, and got dressed and put my shoes on, put my leg braces on, put all these coats on. Anyway, so
Saw the evidence for. You cannot take Palestine, or you cannot take freedom with rocks and rifles and rockets. You can't take it that way. And they can't get that through their head.
Why do you say that?
Why do I say what?
What you just said.
What?
Just what you said.
What are you asking me?
These three sentences that you just said, that was your second point, were basically, each one was, this is why they can't do it. They can't do it by saying this, they can't do it by saying that, and they can't do it by saying this, right? And
wait a minute, I might fight you. Wait a minute,
I listened to exactly what you said.
So let's try to get on track.
Is why what you just said is true. Why is it true?
Why is it true that Palestinians cannot get freedom by saying any means necessary against the Jews is okay?
Yep.
See, the Palestinians is willing to go off the deep end and kill them. They're not going to be sympathetic to the Palestinians being next to them.
But you told me that there were Palestinians who were citizens of Israel that were real comfortable with their position in Israel.
Okay, you're going to change the subject on me.
No, it's the same thing. Why? Especially why when Israel says,
Do you think I'm accurate in saying that any means necessary is a losing hand? Are you agreeing or disagreeing?
what I'm saying is that saying.
No, are you agreeing or disagreeing?
No. Can I explain what I'm going to say?
Well, no, tell me that and then explain.
I think it's inappropriate politically within the construct of a contract to say that. But I think it's appropriate to say that at the beginning of the negotiations of a contract.
Okay.
Did you just understand what I said?
Well, I think you're saying that that's a chip you give away in negotiations.
That's right.
And what I'm saying is the Jews being insecure, they all say it. If the Palestinians just acted like decent human beings, we could allow them to live with us.
Yeah, so at what level would that be, that decent human being? Because the Palestinians that live in Israel are not treated like real class citizens.
No, we just went over that here the last time we talked. 78% of them want to remain Israeli.
License plates. The Jews have a certain color license plate, and the Arabs in Israel have a different color license plate.
In Israel?
Right off the bat, that's like a second-class citizen. It tells the cop.
Are you telling me that the Jews of Israel and the Arabs of Israel have different color license plates?
Yes.
I'm not so sure of that. You might be right, but I didn't know that.
And
I know they're different than the West Bank.
There's a number of people who when that TV reporter got shot in the West, that was the West Bank where she got shot, right?
What's that now?
That TV reporter who got shot in the
West Bank
about last year sometime.
Right. What about it?
Well, when she got shot, there were Palestinians in Israel who are Israeli citizens were talking about that situation on their social media within their own communities, right? Close to 3,000 people lost their job by making a statement on social media. That was like, not public, closed, right? That means that, Israel's, Mossad was listening everybody listens to they're listening to this conversation right now. But there were 3,000 people who lost their jobs for saying so, who were Israeli citizens, not Palestinians coming over with a little day pass, but who grew up there, went to college there, had a nice job in a bank or a lawyer or this or that. They lost their job.
Okay, you're telling me that when people made comments about that journalist who was shot,
right?
3,000 people, were they Israelis or Jews or Arabs?
3,000 Palestinian legal Israeli citizens lost their jobs.
Okay, so Palestinian citizens of Israel, 3,000 Palestinians of Israel lost their jobs.
Right. We're saying,
I didn't know that.
We're making a comment, and you said, "Oh, they love being there. They're happy to be here." They are second-class citizens.
What I said was, when polled, 78% of them say they prefer to live in an Israeli state than a Palestinian state.
Have you ever?
That's what I said.
Okay. Have you ever?
Well, don't put words in my mouth to show me you're halfway paying attention.
Okay, so do you know what a poll is? The demographic tool to prove that you're right, because it's all how you ask the question. You know, I was schooled on how to do those things.
Well, so you're saying it wasn't a legitimate intention to have the poll. This was a setup.
Yeah, the poll. Every poll is a setup. There is no honesty in polling.
Well, there might be no polling is totally unbiased, but there are people who want to know the answer to questions that try to get it, but they do it. They don't do it. Do not do it in a perfect way.
Do you know anything about polling?
Hal, you're giving me more shit just like the other night when I said the news hour did a story on this, and you say always do it. I mean, nothing new there. Hal, what do you think? What do you know about polls?
Okay, so I was schooled.
So your point, is not a valid point to make. You don't have a clue to what you're talking about.
I made it about 5 minutes ago. I said polls are a demographic tool to prove you're right, meaning.
Well, nobody says it's 100% accurate.
No, I'm not.
But it's unlikely to be significantly inaccurate.
I'm not saying within the thing of oops, that's a little mistake. No, polls are written and they're designed to bring forth the answer you want. Now, in that process, you just don't ask one question, you ask a bunch of questions. So you do get a kind of demographic picture of what you're looking for. But as what you just said, 40% of, or whatever percent, Palestinian people would rather live in Israel than a Palestinian state, right? And or whatever you said in that manner. And like I said, that was designed to get that kind of response.
So what would be your guess on the numbers?
I would say I don't know. Have you ever lived in a place where you felt like a second class citizen?
Just tell me what percent you think it would be.
I want, because the only way I can answer this is if you can tell me, oh yeah, I've been in a place where I felt like a second class citizen.
No, I've never felt prejudice against me, no.
Well, if you live in a place where you feel that prejudice, you respond in certain ways, so less, you go along to get along, right? And
let me interrupt you.
Sure.
If I felt like that you actually were open-minded and would pay attention and wanted an answer to this question, I would go to the trouble of sending you a set of interviews from Israeli Arabs so that you could get a better understanding of the situation.
Okay.
But I know you wouldn't pay attention to it. You'd pay a little bit of it and you'd bounce off that you're not really listening, you're not really trying to learn.
Well, that's pretty, what's the right word? Judgmental.
I just don't want to spend 5 minutes looking for something that I know you're not going to look at.
I look at everything you send me. I'll take that back. I look at everything you send me that I notice that you send it to me, because I get so much stuff on my email and I only look at it maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes you send me something and it's already below where I'm looking. You know what I mean? I miss.
There's just a long record of me referencing something I've sent, and I hardly ever recall you remembering it.
Well, I can't, swear by my memory. But I do my best. That's all I can say. I do my best. I don't try. I do my best.
Okay, well, all I'm saying, another way of saying this, the guy, Corey Gil Schuster, does that program, Ask a Palestinian, Ask an Israeli.
Right.
And he'll go and he'll maybe ask 10 of them a question, each one the same question. And
so, do you know how many interviews he does and which ones he uses?
Do I know how many he does and what?
Which ones he uses? Because he could do, show you 4 and he's done 20. He's picked the 4 that.
Let me say something here, Al.
Right.
what you're telling me, in my mind, what I'm hearing, let's put it that way. What I'm hearing is that same old shit out of Al, somebody else's control. There's a script. They're running the show. They're doing the polls illegally because they have somewhere they want to get out of it.
No, not
It's always
illegally.
this.
They're not doing
You wanna
anything
talk?
illegal because they write the laws. No, yes, no.
Why are you cutting me off?
This is a conversation. I'm just saying you make a statement, I respond to it. That's all.
Well, wait till I finish my statement, and I stop when I've made a statement, my point. I say it and stop to allow you, to encourage you to respond to it. You never stop.
So
You never stop.
so
So therefore, you don't listen.
so what?
You're not in the
what
frame of mind to
that
listen.
I should listen to right now?
But you're just gamesmanship. You're just duking it out. Just playing mental games. It's not a genuine inquiry.
So give me something to be, genuinely inquiring.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of the conversation. The Palestinians have a problem in the fact that they don't understand it's necessary to clarify whether or not their intent is genocide of the Jews or not. They don't know that they need to clarify that.
Why?
And the fact that
Can I ask you, why do you think they don't know?
Well, if you want to change the subject.
Why not? It's the same subject. You just made a statement, and you said that they don't know what they're saying, and I'm saying, really?
Okay, well, first off, I'm making the point. Wait a minute, I'll get to it. First off, I'm making a point.
Okay.
Reiterating the point just to make sure it was clear from the beginning, because it was at the beginning of our conversation. And what I'm saying is the Palestinians do not understand that they're not clarifying something as important as the Jews' perception, narrative, believed, made up, all that. They don't.
And what I was saying is Israel's overpowering military force should soothe whatever anxiety that they may have. Palestinians say from the river to the sea, right? No way can Hamas with AK-47s and hand grenades, destroy Israel. Now the other guys up there in Lebanon, they can, and their leader said, "Hey, we're not getting involved until if Israel goes to kill everyone. Yes, we'll get involved, but otherwise, we're going to let Hamas and Israel work this out." And see, the thing is, Hamas has won. There's no way Israel can win. They have to kill everyone, 2.something million people, right? They're going to do that, and of course they are, because the guys in charge are psychopaths. Doesn't even bother them, right? They listen to what they say. They're animals, so they don't see them as human beings, as children. No, and so you can't kill 2.7 million people. There'll still be, if they nuke the place, which they probably will, and they will say, because that guy who was part of the cabinet, who got let go because he said it, but he said it, we got nukes, we're going to use them. You push us, we're going to take you out, right? But they're basically saying, bend over, Palestinians, like you have been for the last 70 years. Be good dogs. Otherwise, we're going to kill you. And that was just, that's part of Israel's motif. They never said they had nuclear weapons. Oh, we could have, we may be, I don't know. But now they said, we're going to use this stuff if you don't settle down, right, and give up. And they can't, Hamas has never given up, right? And they're getting rid of the grandmas and the mommies and the kids. But when they get down to the last 100 people they're holding, Hamas is holding, those guys are military people, right? Last time they held a military guy, it was one soldier, and Israel gave the Palestinians close to 2,000 people that they had in detention for that one soldier. So they have 100 um, soldiers. That's meaning Israel's going to have to give up everybody they have in jail who are Palestinian back to the Palestinians to get those 100 soldiers back, and they're not going to do that, you know. And so it will go back to they'll start bombing the South, and there's 2 point something million people stuck in a little thing the size of size of Manhattan. When they talk about New York City, it's not Manhattan. It's like all the boroughs. So they have 2 point something million people stuck in a thing, and there's no buildings, nothing for them to hide, no basements. There's just tents, or they're just on the ground. So, and when Israel, the IDF takes their Air Force, their F-16s, which we gave them, and the JDAMs that we gave them, and the anti-personnel bombs we gave them. If they use them on and all and JoJo just rings his head. Oh, we shouldn't do this. No, he should stand up and say no. Listen, and the United States has done this before. Back when Henry Kissinger just died. I don't know, he died. I think he just went into another body. But back when he was Nixon's boy, or Nixon was Henry Kissinger's boy, basically they, that war, 6-Day War, the blah blah war, the this war, the that war, where Israel took everything basically. Henry Kissinger knew that he had to get along with the Arab world, so he couldn't just give Israel blank checks. So he didn't deliver the stuff, and the president said, "Hey, deliver those things." I said they should go, and Henry said no. And Henry didn't deliver it for a good number of days, and right at that point, Israel could have run out of stuff. The president went down there and made sure he got on the airplane and sent it off to Israel. So we have done this before, right? JoJo, if JoJo wants to get elected, and see, all these things are interconnected. If JoJo wants to get elected, all he has to do is say, "Okay, that's it. Israel, you don't get another bullet. Step back, get out of Palestine, send the UN in, right? Save all the children, take care of everybody." He does that, he gets elected. Doesn't do it if he does the same thing he's doing. Oh, we're doing like this. Oh, right? That's it for him. And I can play more of that little conversation when he goes on about the member of Congress, the only Palestinian. She stood up and gave a thing, and he says, "Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. She should have said, blah blah blah. We should work it out, blah blah blah. Kiss Jew ass, blah blah blah." No, that girl was thinking she's the first Palestinian in Congress woman, and she's coming from a district where everyone's Palestinian. That's why she got elected. So she makes that speech on purpose. I'm sure she practiced it in front of a mirror 20 times, so she would get the maximum. Just like Donald Trump does. Everything he does is to get maximum free coverage, right? So good old Carrot Head made a speech the other day where he was talking to forget the Arab man. We are only going to let Christians into America, and not just Christians, our kind of Christians, meaning the whatever you call those Baptist guys, and Billy Graham and Jerry Falwell were not these guys. They created the Frankenstein monster of the neo right-wing Christians, the NICP, the Neo Insane Clown Party, and that's what Congress is, the Neo Insane Clown Party, right? And Ronald Reagan, not Ronald Reagan, well, Ronald Reagan started it by calling Jimmy Carter, who was the most Christian guy there ever was, when he did a little interview in Playboy and said he had lust in his heart. Jerry Falwell saw blood in the water because he realized there was a big quadrant of white Christian Baptist people who thought they were losing their country because all these, the black people are getting rights, women are getting rights, people of color are getting rights, poor people are getting rights. The Democrats are just, buying these people by giving them welfare and, giving them a safety net. Why don't we go back to the good old days of Jim Crow when, we were. Anyway, that's what Jerry. And see, I knew Jerry Falwell. I knew him really well. I mean, he was a good bud. Same with Bill, and Billy Graham. So I lived in Asheville, North Carolina, when I was itinerant scholar. And I would get a gig, and they would send me a little envelope in the mail. I would describe what they wanted me to go look at, and they would give me an airplane ride and basically Benjamins in an envelope, right? Nothing traceable, no checks, no money transfers, just that. And I would go up and do that, right? So I would get on an airplane out of Asheville, out of their little airport, and they would have one little airplane that flew out of Asheville 3 times a day, early in the morning, one around 11, one around 4. That would go to Charlotte, right? And then you would connect and go to other places, right? And so the first time I did it, there was this real tall guy, just him and me on the airplane. It was like the 11 a.m. plane, the one in the middle. And I got there, taxi dropped me off, and it was, Asheville Airport, 26 corridor wasn't there. And there was 25 and 19, and it was a 2-lane road that went to the airport. Now the road to the airport is 18 lanes, 26 corridor. Ooh, and they're still adding more. When I was there was 30,000 people in Asheville. Now there's almost 500,000 in that valley. It's like mind-boggling. Anyway, so first time I get on the airplane, it's just me and this really tall guy, and he's in jeans, cowboy boots, a nice shirt, very nice shirt, and he's got his briefcase, and he has, kind of a ball cap, kind of. Right? He always had a hat, and so did I, but I was more like this. Anyway, so I got on an airplane, and there was a first class section. It was just him and me on the airplane, and the stewardess says, "Well, your ticket says, aisle 95 back there. No, just sit here up there in the bulkhead so you can stretch out your legs." Because I was a big boy then, big boy. And so I sat down, and I handed her, I had gotten some things in the magazine section. I handed her a $20 bill. And she was, "Well, so I said, "No, I'm not." So she brings me a drink, 11 a.m. She goes, "Would you like a cocktail?" I said, "Sure." "What do you got?" She goes, "Well, we had these little bottles." I said, "Well, bring me about 4, anything brown." So rum, Jack Daniels, and she had one of Courvoisier and another one, I don't know. So 4, and some ice, keep the ice coming, and ginger ale. So I sat down. I'm sitting kind of right next to Bill. We're both in the front where he's a big, tall guy. I'm a big guy, right? And so I'm taking about 3 seats, where the arms can go up. I'm like, 3 seats. So I look at him, and he looks at me, and I said, "It looks like we're the only 2 bankers on board." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" Because, you and I, everyone who had some business thing, they took the 4 a.m. thing to get it to where we were getting by 9. You and I, we don't have to get anywhere. People want us where we're going. He looks at me, says, "You're pretty sharp. Do you know who I am?" I said, "Well, you're a tall guy, nice guy. Are those Tony Lamas? Those are nice boots." And he goes, "You're pretty observant. And you don't know who I am?" I said, "No, tell me who you are." He goes, "I'm Billy Graham." He said, "Oh, I've heard of you. Oh, but you're always in a suit." He goes, "That's under the carriage. I travel this way, so, I can be comfortable, and not everyone, the suit is my logo That's not me. Oh, so we have a very nice talk in a 20-minute flight that we're there, and we land, and they like put us. We land on time, but we both had someplace else to go other than where that was. It would have been it for us because we were out on the tarmac for a good hour because they didn't have a gate for that airplane because there's only two of us and there are other planes that had lots of people. So we were on. So we were fine. You know, the lady said, "You know, we actually have some breakfast food. Would you gentlemen like that?" Yeah, bring. You know, I have three of these brown things. Let's have some coffee. And I'll put the rest in the coffee. So we're talking about everything. And so we talk about theology. I said, so Jimmy, what do you think? I mean, Billy, what do you think of uh, Jesus Christ? And again, he's like, you know. And no, I said, no. What's your personal connection? You know, because I see you on TV. I know you have you know, your mountain up there in Asheville, and I know that you bought that your part of your half the mountain from American Boone, right? He goes, how'd you know that? I looked at him. He goes, well, you are well informed. I said, yeah, those guys are the Nazis, and they still are the Nazis. Very similar to what Carrot had said. Anyway,
Show Craig that little puppy you got.
Why did you get a puppy when I had puppies to give away? Such sweet puppies.
This one gets bigger than what he is now. My sister works for a in Winston-Salem, and this was her last little puppy out of the litter of the mom.
So anyway, for the next 9 years, I would see Billy Graham on that airplane at least 12 times a year. And we became quite good friends. And I used to go up to his mountain and I'd sit on his porch. He had a great view. He was at the last of the big hills before the valley, right? Before down the hill on 40. So he had a great view. And we'd sit up there and we'd drink iced tea and met his whole family. And we would talk with nobody else around. And we'd talk about everything. And he thought I was, you know, he says, I should be paying you for this stuff. I said, well, other people do. You don't have to know. I called him Bill or William. Yeah, I never called him Billy. He said, why don't you call me Billy? I said, well, because every man I know whose first name ends in Y is a total moron, and you're not a moron. You're William.
I got a puppy
And
that's just
he
like
goes,
that.
my wife calls me William. She doesn't call me Billy. My mother called me William. Anyway, and Jerry Fowler I met in Lynchburg. I kind of stumbled into Lynchburg in 99 to 2002. And I went up to that neck of the woods because an entity I used to work for was an offshot of the Tavistock Institute, with more a forensic psychology group. And way back in the day, they were called the BBI, Bureau of Behavioral Investigation. I don't know what to call themselves now.
What? I don't want to know.
All right. So
See how powerful that is?
I worked. No, I was sent to. There was a thing called the Devil's Highway. Went from Asheville up to Johnson City and took a right-hand turn on 4081 and went up to Stanton, Virginia. And there were more murders. And really, murders where the bodies were in pieces. And everyone just would say, oh, it's a drug deal that went south. No. These were ceremonial sacrifices. You read them up in the Bible. That whole crew who was doing this, that God, and they were Jewish. They were different. I mean, these were the guys that God wrote off the list that Joseph was part of. And that's why Mary had to have a virgin birth, because God had condemned or put a black spot on this crew, right? That came out of Abraham, right? And these guys were total natives, They were eating bodies, sacrificing babies, you name it. And so I was pretty adroit at looking at the signals, studying Hebrew, studying to be a rabbi, studying, Kabbalah, and also the esoteric side of the Roman Catholic Church, the Franciscans, and the Knights. So I had a good pedigree to do that. I still do. I still, I'm not mixed up. No, I was never mixed up in it, but I was an observer of that. And so that's why I was sent in action in 98. And I stumbled on to a cult right up there along 460, along it's 47, County Road 47, that went all along from Bethel all the way up to Stanton, up along the Blue Ridge Mountain Ridge, right? And we kind of zing up and down the mountains, and like where Peaks of Odd, or where the road kind of went up there and hit the parkway, and then went down the other side to 81. I mean, so I was all up in that neck of the woods. And I stumbled across a number of cults, Christian and semi-Christian cults. And I would, I'm well versed, I'm pretty literate. And so when I would talk to the head dude, plus great electrician, that fixes or anything that's electric, you need to be part of our community. We could, you're a valued guy. Man, he said, I'm pruning you to be second in command. Okay. So, you want some intelligence on something, you have a guy like me kind of get themselves to be in second in command. So I was doing that all over that woods, and the best cover was, so I went, I stumbled into that cult, and then I said, so can I, and they had a beautiful compound, so I said, camp out here? No, you have to go get yourself your own place. Come on weekends. I said, okay. So I had my little envelope of Benjamins, went and found a nice motel and stayed there, and kind of got this place called Bedford. And they actually did have an electric supply place, not just Lowe's. And I kind of went there and waited until this guy came in pulling his hair out. I said, hey, what's your problem? So I'm on a contract to wire all these prisons, and I don't have anybody who knows what they're doing, and they're destroying it. It's going to cost me. I'm going to lose my shirt. I said, hey, calm down. I said, I am the answer to your dreams, So I went to work for that guy, and and I was, because I just went around to all the jobs that he was doing, keeping an eye on all these chuckleheads. Half of them were his sons. And had them, no, don't do it that way. Here, this is how you do it. See, that you have to put this kind of coupling and this kind of bushing, because that's what the contract says. You can't just stick it in there. Otherwise, it'll get shorted out. It shorts out. All the doors open, and all the convicts run away. So anyway, I was saving this guy's bacon. I said, listen, I'm not an employee. I'm a consultant. So you pay me every Friday. We'll go to Larry's pub. We'll have a few, play some thing. You give me an envelope, and I'll be ready for you next week, Monday, right? I'll save your bacon, which I did. And this guy got really addicted to me. So I worked for him for almost 3 years. And he was not in Bedford. He was in a place called Rustburg, which is above Lynchburg. So he had 4 jails, 2 firehouses, 1 hospital, and a bunch of churches, all things that, he would mostly just wired houses with runlets, bending pipe, doing things to spec. So anyway, I was doing that, but that was a great cover. I could go anywhere. I'm just the electrician. Don't I'm invisible. So I did that. So Lynchburg, when Jerry just was buying up everything. He bought up every industrial site in Lynchburg, right? And it was called Lynchburg Bible School, right? He bought that up, and then he started buying up like what's it called, Motorola was there, and the guys who had the first smartphone, the BlackBerry, were there, and a few others. He bought up all that stuff, all that property, and he built Liberty University. The 460 goes right through it. Right? Downtown Lynchburg, which is beautiful. It's like the San Francisco. It's built on a big hill. You know, I have to go use a little boy's room. I'll be right back. Listen to the rest.
They don't clarify that. That's a problem that they don't understand their other guy. Okay, now what do you want to ask me?
I want to ask, why do you think they don't understand? Because I think they do understand. And they do that just to provoke Israelis to show not only the world, but the Israelis that they either have to be nuts to think that, basically the Palestinians are any real threat to them because Israel is such a mighty military force compared to them. And that's why I think they do know they are saying that. And they're saying it on purpose because that's all they can do. They can't really do anything other than that.
Well, it's self-destructive.
Well,
it's not going to get them where they want to get.
Well, they're not going to get where they want to get by not doing it. They've tried to be going along to get along for a good deal, and maybe in spits and spurts, but they have tried. Every time Europeans, Americans have taken them to sit at the table and negotiate stuff, it never seems to work out. I mean, why didn't Oslo work out?
Well, let's before we head there, I don't mind going there, but I think the Israelis never want to resolve it.
Right, exactly. So that's why the only thing that the Palestinians can say, listen, you guys, you don't want us here. You want to take everything, and we can't really stop you except by having more babies. That's the best we can do. And say these things that irritate you. And I'll explain it to you then. I'll explain it. Right. We're doing it to irritate you, because maybe you might want to not be irritated. You might want to live in peace, right? And
we're going to force you. We're going to force you.
But they can't.
Compel you.
They can't force them. It's militarily force Israel out of.
No, I was saying the other way around. Are you saying the Palestinians want to force Israel to change by making them afraid?
No.
Okay, where am I wrong? How did I get that wrong?
Because there's nothing that the Palestinians can do to make the Israelis scared. The only thing the question is scared is themselves making themselves scared. Really, the only fear that FDR said it. The only fear is that we fear what we fear. If we stop fearing it, it's not going to be there. And Israel is constant by their.
Hal, do you have confidence that I always stop for you to go? Do I do not always do that? Do I compel the stage?
No. You don't. Because you
do not usually make a point and then give it to you.
Right. And until I say something.
Okay, well, why do you feel a need to break in? Why do you feel a need to break in if you know that I'm going to do that?
I don't. I let you talk, and then when I make a comment about something, you're saying I'm interrupting you. Really?
Yes.
Now, I break my conversations I don't go on and on. You're talking about Al, who goes on and on for 45 fucking minutes or 2 hours.
Okay. See, I never let him make a point. Well, points are irrelevant. Conversation is a discourse. I say something with an idea. If you have something to add or contend or whatever, you jump in. I'm good with that, right? So anyway, I gotta go. I hope that was entertaining enough. I've told the story of Jerry and Bill a number of times. But I'll keep telling because I have a lot of story about those guys. We had loads of fun. I once took Billy Graham up to bloody Madison. I got this gig after being a demographer negotiator with the folks up in Madison County, both North and Tennessee, North Carolina and Tennessee. It's Madison County, Tennessee, near Flag Pond, and Madison in North Carolina. And those both guys, that's where NASCAR started. Revenuers and moonshiners and bud boys. So anyway, I took Billy up there once when they were having the spring fling. And he went up there. He said, I want to go up there and minister to those people because they'd have a party with like 15,000 people. Right? They'd have a big tent. So he would go and be, they'd have the Almond Brothers as their band and a few other people. And, they had Muddy Waters up there once. And so Bill wanted to go up there. So him and I, right, they put him up in a nice place. Me, I had my own campsite. And and he went up there and jeans, cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And, he would wear cowboy hats, but he loved wearing a hat. And I would always get hats at the dollar store or at Goodwill and give him a bag of, right? He'd kind of wear them around. So I was just down on buddy, He could talk to me about anything. I would never, I never really told anybody that Billy Graham's my good friend until he was long gone for 10 years, right? And until his moron son took over. But I was even more of a moron was Jerry Falwell. And Jerry was another guy who really liked me because he could tell me anything. And I was well versed in theology, and we could talk about anything. So he, even though he invented the quiet, silent majority and the neo right-wing Christians, he didn't believe in any of that stuff. He just saw it as a vehicle for power and profit, just like LU was. So, and you go to LU, and it's the most party school you ever want to go to. And plenty of stories about that. I mean, they built a ski lodge there, and because it doesn't snow, they have like a 7 million acre mountain with a brush. People ski down a brush. So anyway, I gotta go. Love you guys. I will come back and do a show later this afternoon. Okay, because I can. And I will. Probably about 2 or 3. Okay. I will see you. Stay well and come back. So my time. Get ready. Watch this and come with questions and statements and let's have a real live. Instead of me going on and on. I mean, this. I've been doing this now 5 years, so maybe that's why I kind of talk over that classic, but. I'll play the last part of it because it really gets squirrely. He gets so irate that I don't let him make his point. I said, listen, you've been making your point for the last 10 years I've known you. And it's the same stupid point, and it's meaningless. It's irrelevant. It's just because you shook Joe Biden's hand on the subway in the between the Senate office building and the Senate. They have an underground subway. And so and back in the day, if you knew about it as a citizen, you could get on that subway yourself and and talk to your senator. And that was kind of a tradition until they started worrying about security. Anyway, so he had, his I don't know if you remember the story a couple of nights ago. He was talking about how he gave somebody a letter about they should do this, and then a few weeks later, it became governmental policy. That moron, they were already doing that. You just thought either you realized it and you stuck it away and you thought it was your idea. It's like no. I realized there are no ideas. My practice wife, Donna Ann, I would when I was building a lot of clubs and doing a lot of things and inventing stuff. I had my little lab, and anyway, so I was doing a lot of stuff, and people would take those ideas and then put them out in the market. Right? And she goes, "But that was your idea." I said, "Listen, to manufacture that, to put it out in the market, it costs millions of dollars. I don't have that." They took my idea and they put it out. And everyone, I did about 9 clubs with this. When my idea was, I loved sealed beams because they were the best thing for mirror balls, right? And we used to have an instrument that you had to attach to a wall and wire. And what I did was aircraft landing lights are a sealed beam, right? And they run on 12 volts. And so I would take number 10 solid wire and twirl it around a pipe and then have like a spring, and then have them connected to the little screws on the lamp. And I'd have 2 alligator clips, and I'd have 2 number 10 wires that were insulated. And, I basically used tube and peg from the 1900s. And I would string that all over the place and then just attach those alligator clips to those wires. And this number 10 solid and this number allowed me to adjust that sealed beam to was right. So you'd have a bar, you'd have beams coming straight down in pools of light along the bar, in the middle of dining room tables, and the rest of everything black. Stuff like that, right? So I did that in a number of clubs, a number of restaurants. That became like one of my singular, Al did his place, right? And then Newtone, who were in Long Island City, and they owned Eagle Electric, and made outlets and switches and all that. My buddy Frank Vigiani, who had Vico Electric, who was part of their scene, introduced me to their designing crew. And they said, "We love this. Can we?" I said, "Sure. This is the deal. Give me a nice little envelope, right? Just at the beginning, to show good faith, and you give me carte blanche to come into your warehouses and pick through whatever I need for a job. Not a problem. And I will give you feedback on everything you make. All of the exhaust fans that I get from Newtone, I will tell you what is good about them, what's bad about them. Right? I'll talk to you guys, the engineers, and you can tweak them until it's a better product." And they kept doing that. Every Christmas, man, I get a nice envelope and I get boxes of booze. That's one of the traditions in New York, and I think it's around other cities where Local 3 is anyway. I mean, the IBEW is. The master electrician gets enough booze for the rest of the year. So that was my relationship with Eagle Electric and Newtone, was that they, I gave them ideas, I gave them insight, and they took care of me very nicely. I wasn't on their payroll, because I was never around that much. But my wife saw all this, and you said we could be millionaires. And I said, no, you need millions to put something like that on the market. So that's still out there. Wherever you see, like, instead of track light, wires kind of strung with light bulbs hanging off them, that which came from me. There are a number of other little incidents. Like, I started, once I got into, what is the chip? It's a chip, an IC. No, what's it called? I forget the name of it. It's a special kind of chip. It's a controllable chip, right? And it's controlled through the bias, it's capacitor. It's controlled through the bias. So you can send a discrete kind of current through an outlet, and it'll go to that other thing that's plugged in over there and turn that light on and off or dim it. And that's like, computer run houses. So I started doing that. Started making these little boxes that I would put into an outlet, And then I had a little controller that you could, and so I forgot the company. They were part of Eagle Electric, another one of their subsidiaries. They picked that up, and then they started doing it, and nobody really wanted to use it, so they kind of shipped it over to Radio Shack, and Radio Shack hit. That was a, right out the wall, and that was another thing. So Radio Shack, I don't know if Eagle owned them or were just a subsidiary or just kissing cousins. But anyway, Radio Shack again did the same kind of relationship that Eagle had with me. Hey, we got all these. You want to try this out? They could tell us how to do this better. Blah blah blah. And that's, back in the day. That's how I ran around, right? But, and none of that is illegal, because it was never tremendous amounts of money. It's nothing like what a senator or a congressman gets, talking about illegal. A guy who they're about to give the bum thrust to Congress, a Republican, the Republicans want to get rid of. He's basically saying, I don't know why they're picking on me. All these other guys are way worse, and they're still there. Because he's outside of the gang, of the club. And he did the big thing. He basically got caught to the point where it became obvious that everyone in Congress is doing what he's done. So that's why they're getting rid of him. But anyway, the battery's about to go, so I got to go. I love you guys. Talk to you later. Remember, look for me around between 2 and 3 this afternoon. I'll try and do another show. Pick up where we left off here. But you got to come with some insights, some questions, some comments. Okay. We gotta get this, live chat to be chatting. Okay. Bye.